Welcome to the I Love Coaching podcast, the show where we help coaches, entrepreneurs, and leaders build businesses that create massive impact. I'm Adam Roach, alongside my incredible co-host,
Jess Weber, and we're here today to bring you the best strategies, mindset shifts, and real-life success stories to help you level up in your coaching journey.
Whether you're launching your coaching business, scaling to 6 or 7 figures, or just looking for inspiration to push through, this podcast is your go-to resource.
We're bringing you expert insights, real talk, and actionable items every single episode. So if you're ready to take your coaching game to the next level,
then let's dive on in. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the I Love Coaching podcast. I'm Adam Roach. You know me, and you know my co-host,
Jess Weber. And Adam, I'm so excited about this episode today.
I just sound Canadian there. Did I sound Canadian? I said, yeah. Okay,
but you weren't just in Canada. You were in Florida and Kentucky and Indiana.
I was in Florida, Kentucky, Indiana. Let's see, what was it? Four states, 4 beds, 9 days. That's what it was, yeah.
Point being, I feel like we haven't talked in forever. And so I'm excited about this episode because it's like one of those, we always kind of have these almost like aha moments or like inspirational moments that like get me going. And I'm like, it's been too long.
No, tell me about it. Though it was a 4th of July week every year. This is a fun story. We gave the kids the gift of going to Wimbledon this year, which is clearly whether you know tennis or not, you know Wimbledon. And Wimbledon, though, overlapped with our traditional family lake house trip event. And so we gave the kids the option. We told them that we were going to go to Wimbledon. And when we found out that it was going to overlap and they were going to have to choose one or the other, they chose the lake house, which was fantastic because first of all, it's family time. And second of all, it saved me about $25,000, which was fantastic.
That's huge. But I think the bigger thing that's really cool is the fact that they chose family time. You know, It shows that you've done a great job parenting your kids and made them human. And like, I know you talk about tennis with them a lot, but it shows that they have heart, they care about people, and it's not just all tennis all the time. So I think that's a really cool thing.
Well, and at the same time, too, I mean, they this house, my mother's and stepfather's lake house, got hit by a tornado back in March. And so it was completely still under construction. Their bunk room that they stay in was not ready. And so we put up these 6-man tents. And she's got like this, I don't know how big their garage is, but their garage is pretty big. And so we put 3 6-man tents out there. We set up some portable ACs, and there were fans everywhere, and they stayed out there. It was super cool. They had their own refrigerator. They had their own table of snacks. They were living life just in the garage. It was fun, though.
So they were glamping is what you're telling me.
Yeah, pseudo glamping, that if it did get too hot in there and they wanted to blow out the hot air, they would open up we just let them live, and it was fun, and they all survived, which was good.
That's awesome.
Jess, I want to go into something, though. Today's topic, this is something that we're both passionate about. And we see this in life. We see this in the community. We see this with maybe even family members. And it's the hidden cost of playing small, right? The hidden cost of playing small. And we want to share today with our listeners three power moves to get you guys back into playing bigger. With the last one being probably one that I'm super excited to share. So Jess, this is the problem. This is a big problem. And you said something before we started this, and I want you to share with everybody about this topic. What was that you said?
The phrase, you're not failing, you're functioning. That one hurt a little bit because I can sit here and look at my past and look at what I've done, and I can feel that the whole you're functioning. It's not that you're a failure, but you also don't feel like a success. You're kind of stuck in this middle zone. And so I want to talk about getting out of that, what I would call like kind of a safety zone, and actually like leaning into your potential.
Yeah. And that's a problem with some people, right? Because it's scary and they actually enjoy the functioning part, right? And I say the word enjoy because it's easy. Right. The functioning is easy, where the potential is scared and hard, and may use this word called commitment that they might have to step into, right? They might have to commit to something. We just finished reading the book, The Science of Scaling. And one of the things he says to do in there is, what is one identity shift you'll commit to, right? I thought that was such a neat language. But let's dive into this. We've got 3 tactical shifts here that will help people help people move towards playing a little bit bigger. Let's dive into these.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the first shift that I wanted to kind of talk about here is auditing your alignment. Mm-hmm. We've done podcast episodes in the past on alignment, misalignment, all of that kind of thing. But yet I think a lot of times when we are coasting and we know we have the potential for more, it's a reminder to revisit that alignment, because I think so often we do it with a big goal in mind or an annual reset or something like that. And yet we need to be really intentional of like, if we feel that we're not hitting everything, things are comfortable, or you use the word easy, then it's probably we're not in full alignment with our potential.
Yep. Simple way to look at this. If it's draining you, you're misaligned. So if it's draining you, you are misaligned. Now, you can define what draining you means. Does that mean that it takes your energy? Does that mean that it physically makes you tired? Does it emotionally, my gosh, that's on the calendar again, or oh my gosh, I have to go to this workplace, or oh my gosh, I have to work for this person. If it is draining you, it is a misalignment. Let's just keep it super simple here in this very first tactical shift.
I love that. And I think it's easy to say that. Sometimes it's not so easy to do, because again, we move through life, we're functioning, we're doing the things. And it's like, we don't often pause and reflect and be like, oh yeah, that was an energy drain, or oh yeah, I felt dread there, or oh, that person didn't energize me when I met with them, spoke with them, whatever. And so it's a thing that you definitely have to keep in mind and be strategic with on, I would say, a daily basis of like looking at your calendar, even just from yesterday, be like, what was good about yesterday? What should I not move forward into today with?
Yeah. I mean, you could do 3 simple checks, right? So we've got an energy check, we've got an identity check, and maybe an ownership check too. But let's go to the very first one. When you're looking at your environment, when you're looking at your calendar, because that's part of your environment too, what tasks, what clients, what who's drain your energy and what bring you energy. I'll never forget, I had a coach one time when I was in the team leader role with Keller Williams. And he says, Adam, let's go through your calendar. I said, cool. So I went through my calendar. He's like, I want you to list off everything that drains energy from you and everything that brings you energy. My whole calendar drained my energy. The only thing that brought me energy was lead generating and holding appointments. That was what brought me energy. He's like, okay, we're going to delete everything else and you're going to focus just on that. So get your team to handle everything else. I thought, wow, that was really fun. And then the role actually felt more aligned because I was in an energy filling space.
I think that's huge in everything you're doing. And I think especially you and I work with entrepreneurs mostly. We find that they're carrying everything, right? They've got so much on their plate because they might even be a solopreneur and are trying to do every aspect of their business. Or they've got a team, but maybe they don't have a full team or the right team members in place. And it'll be one of those things where it feels draining to like carry this business, you know? And so I think it's a really important thing to do that energy check and look at your calendar and your tasks, because again, you know, you talked about the science of scaling, but everything Benjamin Hardy writes is spot on in terms of understanding that probably a lot of that stuff that's draining you is either unnecessary or it could be delegated. And so it's one of those things where it's like when you're doing this audit and being intentional, and if you do have a team, delegating to other team members who might find energy in the thing that drains you, it allows you all to be in alignment and move the goal forward that much faster. And the whole team can play bigger instead of playing smaller because they're in alignment as well. So you said energy check, then you said identity check. I want to talk about that one.
The identity check to me is so crucial. I believe, Jess, this world is made up of a bunch of zombies. And here's what I mean by that, right? And I don't mean that from a zombie show or a zombie apocalypse, even though when we were at the lake house, we had to play tennis every single day because Amelia is playing right now in what there's called National Clay Courts, which is the top 190 girls in the country. And she's down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which is why I flew there on Saturday and flew back yesterday. Though we were playing tennis and this siren went off, right? It was like, I totally forgot about this. And you can probably relate to this. This really has everything to do with zombie apocalypse. The siren went off. We're playing tennis. It's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And like this incredible loud horn was going off. We're like, what in the world? I even pulled out my camera and went on the gram and I was like, hey, what is this sound? I forgot. Jess, do they do this in your neck of the woods?
First Monday of the month, they check the tornado siren.
That's right. It was a tornado siren. I was like, oh my gosh. And the kids were like, what is this? What is this? And Addison,
funny.
my son, was like, Dad, is it like a zombie apocalypse? I was like, I don't know, but it's kind of cool. Okay, let's go back to this identity check. I believe that there are zombies out there. I believe listeners right now could be zombies. And here's what that is. Are you proud of the way you're showing up, or are you just kind of going through the motions and performing a specific version of yourself that you think people want to see of you, right? This is, if you're stepping into the space of being inauthentic, right? An inauthentic person is going to drain your battery. If you are being inauthentic, we'll call it a zombie. If you're being a zombie and you're walking around not your true self, you're going to drain yourself. The energy audit here of auditing alignment in the identity space is so stinking important. I'll never forget, I'll keep using team leader as an example. When I became a team leader, this is 2009, I'd only been in real estate for maybe a year or so, and I was just flipping properties. The only reason why I got into Beverly Hills Keller Williams is because I was teaching tennis to the team leader and to the operating principal. And one of my tennis business partners went from Coldwell Banker to Keller Williams, and he handed me the MREA book. And he handed me the MREA book, and I read through it real fast. He's like, hey, on page 202, well, now I know the book. 202 is where they talk about how to build a team, right? And so he says, you want to do this with me? And I said, yes. And so I did. I jumped in there with him and we started building this team, but I was like the trash man. I literally did everything on the team. Buyers, sellers, took the trash out. I was the admin. I held him accountable. I did all this stuff. And then the team leader said, hey, I think you could be a good team leader. And I actually landed a job being a team leader. And Jess, I was so inauthentic in that space because I had no idea what I was doing. I would show up with a suit and tie on. I would show up and I read the MREA book 6 times. No, it's 10 times in 6 months. And I showed up with only that knowledge. And I was so inauthentic. It was gross how I was trying to be, but I thought I had to be someone that I didn't have to be, really.
Well, it's funny because sometimes it's showing up as a projection of what you believe people are looking for. And sometimes it's showing up as only a part of yourself. Maybe
that's so true.
Because I think of that more in terms of my past experience is I am a character, right? I've got personality, I've got likes and dislikes, I've got knowledge, all these things. And yet I would go into a workspace or even a friend space and I would read the room and I would say, okay, I believe that they're looking for this piece of me. They don't really want the rest of it. They want this piece. And so I would show up with that piece. And then I might test the waters as I gained confidence and gained better understanding of the situation and be like, okay, maybe I can show them a little bit of this, or maybe they might actually like a little bit of this. But overall, pretty much every work environment I've been in, so education, franchise roles, real estate, I was not my full authentic self because I believed that they didn't want it. And typically, when I did start showing myself more authentically as a whole person, there was misalignment with the other people in the organization. And that caused us to part ways eventually. And it's so funny because I've told this to you, Adam, a dozen times. I said, this is the first time I've been in partnership with somebody who has fully embraced my entire self. And I love every second of it. And I'm never bored because there's consistent alignment. And so I think that identity check piece is so relevant because if you're not feeling like an authentic person, whether you're hiding part of yourself or you're showing up as a different person, there's something wrong there.
That's right. Yep, that's right. Let's go to the last one here with this part. And that's the ownership check, right? The ownership check is literally as it sounds. What are you tolerating? And you get what you tolerate, Jess. I mean, we've heard that so many different ways. And what are you tolerating that, again, is out of alignment with what brings you energy? Right. Again, we're talking about playing big here. And right now, if you are tolerating the BS in your life that doesn't align with you, you're going to show up playing small. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to show up playing small. But you've got to see this, right? And one of the ways that you can do an ownership check is, what are you tolerating that you wouldn't let your kids tolerate? What are you tolerating that you wouldn't let your best friend tolerate? right? You've got to see that through the eyes of something or someone else in the situation, because I guarantee you're tolerating stuff that you shouldn't.
Yeah. To me, the ownership check is a perspective check, right? It's if you were in somebody else's shoes looking at your life, what would you have to say about it? Are you living authentically? Are you tolerating things, or are you not? And you stand your ground in your beliefs and your truth, right? And so I think all three of these, energy, identity, and ownership, are super valuable things that we let coast way too frequently.
Yep. That's very true. Just take them in number 2. Remember, there's only 3 ways here. So this is number 2. Stick around for number 3, because number 3 is the best, I think.
So in addition to looking at your alignment, you need to reconnect with your edge, your energy, your power. It's not about blowing up everything that you're currently doing if you're feeling out of alignment, but it's finding that authentic piece of you and leaning into that and leveraging that to kind of bring you out of that small space that you've been playing in.
You know, Dan Martell would say reconnecting or developing and leaning into your 10.0 version of yourself.
Right.
I love when he used to talk about that. And he would give the simple example of, if we were talking about it from a financial sense, of your 10.0 version of yourself is just, if I handed you a check for $10 million and said, if we're only just talking about the financial space here, not that it is the be all end all, but let's just talk about it from that specific sense. If I handed you a $10 million check and said, Jess, here you go. You've earned this. This is all yours. And you walked it to the bank, and the bank said, wow, yes, congratulations. Yes, we will deposit this. It's going to clear in 5 days. How would you walk around? Right? How would you move about your day? What would it look like to reconnect to this 10.0 version of yourself, just in the financial space we're talking about here, right? What's one thing you would do different, or what's one challenge maybe that you would step into when you knew that money was there that maybe you were avoiding before, right? Yeah. These are some things that we need to really pay attention to, is as we are reconnecting, as you said, with our edge or our 10.0 version of ourselves. Where have we gone soft, Jess? Right? Where have you gone soft, and where have you started to settle? I'm giving you an example of being at the lake. For those listeners that know our journey with Coach Allen, I ate some cookies. We all know cookies are my kryptonite. Dana made the best. Oh, they were so good. They were like kamut flour. Like, just go watch my Instagram. You'll see it. She made this American flag cake out of this cookie, and we had it for dessert, and I was saving myself the entire night. Now, unfortunately, at the lake, we eat late. Alan wants us to be done by 6, and it was like 8:30. Jess, I may or may not have eaten half of that cookie cake. It was so stinking good. But let's go back to this. Sorry, I digress. Where have you gone soft, right? Jess, where are you gone soft, and where have you started to settle? Sorry, maybe I was talking about my stomach there being a little soft. Yeah.
You're hilarious. No, it's one of those things where you were talking about, the financial space and how would you show up differently. One of the questions that I've always loved, that I've heard in icebreaker settings in every job I've ever gone into, is, what's something that you would do if you knew that failure was not an option and money was not a problem? Good. And I think that kind of question is a great way to kind of look at this edge conversation or power conversation, because typically when people ask that question of themselves, they either bring up a hobby that they've let slide, right? Or they'll bring up a aspirational thing that they want to do. I want to write a book. I want to be a speaker. I wish I could play music, whatever the thing is. And the thing is, no matter what you say, you technically are capable of doing that thing, right? All of it takes energy, and it takes effort, and it takes intentionality, but you can do the thing. And so I think asking yourself that question regularly, especially if you feel like you're going soft and not in the cookie sense, is, what do I wish I was doing that I'm not doing right now? And then that leads you into our third point here to help you stop playing small.
Well, before we go to the third one, I want to land the plane here with this one: reconnecting to your edge, reconnecting to your 10.0 version of yourself. And if you want to take action right now, go schedule something this week, right? Just go schedule something this week that stretches you, because this stretch part here, you get to define. I'll give an example of this. I had a client, a one-on-one coaching client from El Paso, Texas. And he was a global business guy. And we got into this conversation here. And I said, okay, you've got 1 week to come back and tell me where you're going to physically stretch yourself. What are you going to do? he wasn't in the best shape, though I did help him lose, I think it was like 38 pounds or release, as Alan has taught us, where he released 38 pounds, even though he gained it back. But he showed up the next week and I said, what'd you schedule? And Jess, I don't know if you've heard this, what's called the rim to rim. And you can go rim to rim to rim walk, and it's the Grand Canyon. And what you do is you literally walk from one edge of the Grand Canyon all the way to the other. And then you can actually walk back. And I think the whole walk, don't quote me on this, is maybe like a marathon walk. One way might be like 13 miles, and the other way might be another 13 miles back. So anyway, long story short, he had scheduled that. And I was like, there you go. Now you're stretching yourself. And guess what? His whole focus changed, right? His whole focus of what was important, because he was out of shape. He was getting ready to walk 13 miles, well, 26 miles is what he thought he was going to do. And so he had to step into something that was stretching him, and he refocused on this edge to be able to do it. And now he did it. He didn't go rim to rim to rim. He just went one way, and he was done, and that's all he wanted to do. So, but he went and scheduled it. So all that story is, I want you listeners to go schedule one thing right after this podcast that'll stretch you. Not busy work. Not busy work. I'm not talking about busy work. Bravery work, Jess. Yes.
Well, see, and I think that's the perfect segue into this last point of ours, which I would say, make your power move.
Yep.
So we know that action builds identity. It builds momentum. And when you're playing small, you're typically not taking action, right? You're coasting, you're just settling.
Right.
And so what our challenge to you is when you've looked at the alignment and you know where you're feeling soft, right? And you're starting to reconnect with that edge, then making that power move is that third step to really get you out of that slump.
Yeah. Talk is cheap, right? I mean, let's be simple. Talk is cheap. My old tennis coach in college used to say, talk is cheap, actions are lethal, Roach. And that's what he would say over and over and over. Coach, I'm going to go out and do it. Okay, go do it. Is what he would say, right? Talk is cheap, actions are lethal. And that's what this is, right? So if you feel that you are playing small and you want to play bigger and you're not making the power moves, which is just taking action, you are going to continue to play small. It's going to show up everywhere in your life. Health, wealth, relationships, spirituality, giving, right? All of these areas, you are going to continue to play small unless you start to take action. So when you take action, though, it is picking something, Jess. It is picking something that you want to take action in, and maybe different areas or verticals in your life, in the health space, in the wealth space. We can take the health one. I know our listeners have heard our story many, many times in the health space. So we took action. We met Alan. We hired Alan. We brought Alan to speak at our summit. Alan now is not only in our lives, you are helping Alan in his business and coaching him, right? So we took action in the health space. And just how many LBs have you released?
50
LBs. That is super solid, Jess.
Yeah.
And because you took action.
And it is. And it was small steps. It wasn't that I overhauled everything in one day. I told him, I was like, I have a kid with a health condition, a heart condition. I've got some other things happening. I've got, all these things, but I didn't let those become excuses. Right. We just modified my plan to not allow me to stop playing small. And so by working with somebody else and finding accountability through somebody else, it allowed me to gain momentum to lose that much. And I mean, I intend to continue to lose more with his help of guiding me and structuring my workouts to accommodate all the things rather than letting them just be excuses.
Yep. Yeah. I tell you, we've talked about this before too. I think it's back here. Be Your Future Self Now book is a great one in this space to dive into, because when you pick a decision, right? A decision maybe you've been putting off, and understand what are the boundaries you need to set in this decision that you need to make. What's the conversation that you've maybe been avoiding that you need to go have, right? What is a risk that you've been overthinking, right? And a lot of this just plays into our past patterns of thinking, and it stops us from actually taking action because you have no clarity on your future self, right? I'll give an example about Amelia playing tennis this past week. Her very first round, she had an opponent that she should have beaten, though at the end of the day, it didn't come that way. She came out of the gates like Mike Tyson and punched the girl in the nose, not literally, but she beat her pretty handily. And then the second two sets were a completely different story, though. I think she was a little afraid to step into that potential zone. And that's okay, because guess what? I'm going to stay dad, but I'm also maybe going to put my coach hat on a little bit and talk to her about this and her stepping into her potential, because that's what, just at the end of the day, that's what all our listeners should take from this is, where and how do I get to step into my potential? Because if you're playing small, you're not even close to your potential. I heard someone
you're leaving it on the table.
Yeah, I heard this, Jess. I heard someone say that God's gift to you is your potential. Your gift back to God is reaching it. And I thought, the only way to reach it is by taking action. That's why I said this third step is my favorite, because taking action, that's the hardest part in all of this.
And more often than not, it's a mental game more than a physical one, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have
100%.
a fear of failure, or a fear of success, or a fear of rejection, or we have imposter syndrome, or whatever the case may be. You can make the list as long as you need to. But typically it's something in our own mind that is stopping us from taking that next step. And it's so silly, because it's like, if you just go do the thing, you'll realize that everything you built up in your head was exponentially larger than what it actually was in the moment. And so
this is,
yeah.
Go ahead, keep going.
Oh, I was just going to say, so it's like, once you get over the hurdle of taking the first step, it snowballs is where I was going to head. So,
yeah, I was going to say, you don't have to do more here, right? This really is not about doing more. It's about truly getting honest. And getting honest with yourself. It's about then stepping into intentionality in a space that you want to. Again, this is life. This is a life type conversation here. And you need to take your verticals in that life: health, wealth, relationship, spirituality, giving, leadership, intimacy, whatever it is. And now go build honesty for yourself and intentionality behind that.
Yeah. You don't need another goal. You need alignment.
That's right.
You don't need another goal. You need a challenge. You don't need another goal. You need momentum towards the ones you've already set.
Very, very true. So again, if you're feeling like you are playing small, pause this podcast, start it over again, listen to these 3 steps, and go figure out where you need to take action immediately so that you can start to play bigger. Because that's what we need to do, Jess. We all need to play bigger so we can step into that space. We all have the potential, and God's given us that gift, and now it's our job to give it back to him by reaching that potential is what I believe. Yes.
100%.
Okay, you want to land the plane anyway?
Yeah, I mean, if this resonated with you, then let us know, and feel free to check out our website, ilovecoachingco.com. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can check out other podcast episodes, read our blog, all the things. But we are here as, co-hosts of this podcast, as educators or coaches inside the community. And our mission is clear. It's to help change and serve 100 million lives. So hopefully this helped you a little bit, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Hey, I want to add one thing here, Jess, and we haven't even talked about this, though I'm sure some of these topics are landing with you. Though, if you want a topic that you would like to hear us discuss and have banter back and forth with, go to hello@ilovecoachingco.com and just send us a topic that you would like to hear on this podcast. And we'll see if we can step into serving you with your topic idea. So hello@ilovecoachingco.com and send us your topic idea. That's it, Jess. Okay.
Love it.
Okay. See you guys. Take care.